on, gang. Got a dub. Let's get it.
Big dub. Let's go.
Fever dub. Woo! Dubs. It's giving.
ALIYAH Boston puts on a masterclass. LEXIEhull gets a big bump on the noggin, and Aerial Powers shows that she is quite the rebounder, where the Indiana Fever blow out the Seattle Storm 95-70.
Well, the Indiana Fever just cooked the Seattle Storm, and they did it without Caitlin Clark. No excuses, no flukes, just a team stepping up. ALIYAH Boston finally played like the dominant force fans have been waiting to see, bullying her way through the paint and controlling the glass. LEXIEhull was everywhere, hustling, diving, forcing turnovers, and hitting shots that killed Seattle's momentum. The Storm, on the other hand, looked flat from start to finish. Even Jewel Lloyd's spark couldn't save them. For Indiana, this wasn't just a win. It was proof they can stand tall without Clark carrying them. If Boston and Hull bring this energy consistently, the Fever suddenly look a whole lot scarier.
Good job. Good job. Good job. Yes. 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 Okay, really great stuff. That's the most complete game we put together in a long time. We made more free throws than they attempted. Yo, hey, that is a difference maker for us, and that will be a difference maker for us. 22 assists on 36 made field goals. Total team effort.
AB, 1,000th career rebound. Fastest player in Fever history to do so. And Kel set a new franchise record for most points in a single season.
Can the Fever really win without Clark, or was this luck? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Absolutely massive win for the Indiana Fever. Really a great day for the Fever overall. There's no other way to put it. And going back in retrospect, when we look at those Minnesota Lynx games, you know, I didn't feel bad about the way the Fever played in those games. They hung tight with a Lynx team that is just genuinely a great team. By some of the metrics, historically great when you look at their net rating and the way they've been able to produce so far this year. Obviously, Feet Collier was only available for the second of those two games. Nonetheless, the Fever hung tough.
Let's be real. ALIYAH Boston finally looked like the dominant force fans have been waiting for. That might sound harsh, but anyone who's watched her knows the truth. She's got the talent to be a matchup nightmare, yet too often she plays almost too polite. Against Seattle, that changed. She put her head down, went strong, finished through contact, and reminded everyone why she was the #1 pick. This wasn't just another big body in the paint. This was Boston taking over.
Which probably should have been commended a little bit more given the competition. Then they smack the Seattle Storm. Now the Storm, not everything's great over there. I think the head coach, Noah Quinn, may be in some trouble. I mean, they have the bright future of Malonga, of course, but there's talent on that roster, and with a playoff spot on the line, they shouldn't be playing as poorly as they did in this one, where they just get dominated by the Fever. I mean, when you're suiting up Neko Gumake and Skylar Diggins and Gabby Williams, and you trade for Brittany Sykes, you expect better results than Seattle got. But on the flip side of that is the way that the Fever played. Unselfish, and the stars showed out, because even with everybody that's been in and out of the line,
the Fever desperately needed that. With Clark out, the offense usually sputters, relying way too much on Kelsey Mitchell to hit tough, contested shots. But when Boston takes charge, everything shifts. She drew fouls, finished through contact, grabbed boards, and turned second chances into points. That kind of presence forces defenses to collapse, which suddenly frees up Mitchell, Sims, and Hull to find their rhythm. It's simple basketball. Inside dominance creates outside opportunities. The catch? It only works when Boston decides to show up like a true star.
And LEXIEhull is tough as nails. She took a shot, a headbutt, had to leave. The hope was it wasn't a concussion. Obviously it wasn't. She comes back in, steps into a three confidently, knocks it down. Everybody's pumped, including Stephanie White. Look at that Caitlin Clark shirt she's got on.
LEXIEhull didn't need to light up the scoreboard to prove her value in Indiana's win over Seattle. She fought through a nasty head-to-head collision with Gabby Williams, left the game, got checked, and came right back. That's toughness most players wouldn't risk in a mid-season grind. Her 5 points don't make headlines, but her 9 rebounds, hustle plays, diving for loose balls, and tipping passes changed the momentum. Those little things don't trend on social media, but Fever fans saw it. They know Hull's impact is about grit, not just buckets. Meanwhile, Seattle looked flat and uninspired. For a team essentially tied with Indiana in the standings, this was supposed to be a statement game. Instead, their lack of depth showed immediately. Their bench provided nothing, their defense was soft, and they allowed ALIYAH Boston to dominate the paint with little resistance. By the third quarter, when Indiana stretched the lead, Seattle folded. No counter, no fight, just frustration. That's not the mark of a team ready to contend. Indiana, on the other hand, looked energized without their superstar. Kelsey Mitchell dropped 21 on efficient shooting. Odyssey Sims added 22, including a momentum-shifting bank shot 3, and even role players chipped in. Normally, without Caitlin Clark orchestrating the offense, the Fever looked chaotic and overly reliant on Mitchell's contested jumpers. But this night was different. The offense flowed, possessions looked purposeful, and Boston played with the kind of dominance fans have been begging for since her rookie season. The strangest part? The crowd. Even with a 20-point lead, the atmosphere was flat. Fans wore their Nike whiteout shirts, but without Clark, the arena lacked that electricity. That's the Clark effect. She transforms every game into must-watch theater. Without her, it feels like just another Tuesday night, no matter how well the Fever play. Still, Boston and Hull stepping up matters. It proves the Fever don't have to crumble when Clark is sidelined. They can grind out wins, they can impose their will, and they can compete. For a team hovering in the playoff race, these types of games build confidence and cushion. And maybe, just maybe, they're learning how to win without relying entirely on one star.
All season long. Then ALIYAH Boston was a beast in this one too. She really asserted herself, didn't have to deal with that front line that she had to deal with in Minnesota, and just that overall length and talent that Minnesota has that can be overwhelming. Seattle a little bit more disjointed, and good feed by Howard, by the way.
Let's be clear, this Fever win wasn't flawless. Stephanie White's rotations continue to leave fans scratching their heads. Take Michaela Timpson, for example. Barely 3 minutes of action, then tossed back in during garbage time. Why? No explanation, no rhythm, just randomness. It's like White draws lineups out of a hat some nights. That's not how you build a bench. Boston and Mitchell can't carry the load forever. At some point, you need younger players to grow, but that opportunity keeps disappearing. Then there's Boston. Yes, she played like the wrecking ball fans have been begging for, but even she had moments that drove people crazy. She dominated in traffic, finished through contact, but then bricked a couple of wide-open layups. It's becoming a weird trend with young bigs. Angel Reese is guilty of it too. Fans noticed. They celebrated her strong finish, but couldn't ignore the missed bunnies. If Boston wants to level up from great to elite, those have to fall. The larger truth? The Fever can absolutely beat solid teams without Caitlin Clark, but only under one condition. Their stars have to show up. Boston has to dominate. Hull has to scrap and hustle. Mitchell has to score efficiently. Sims has to bring fire off the dribble. If even one of those elements disappears, the entire structure collapses. That's the razor-thin margin Indiana lives with when Clark is sidelined. Seattle's collapse, though, exposed something bigger about the WNBA right now: depth, or the lack of it. Rosters look competitive on paper, but when benches check in, it's like the air gets sucked out. Outside of the league's true elites, consistency is a myth. That's why Indiana can look unstoppable against Seattle one night, then stumble against Dallas the next. Still, this win matters. It wasn't just about the scoreboard. It was about proving Indiana doesn't have to rely on Clark's gravity every second of every possession. Everyone knows Clark warps defenses. She pulls doubles, forces rotations, opens lanes for teammates. Without her, the Fever often looks lost. But in this game, they prove they can still punch back. Add Clark back into the mix, and suddenly this group looks dangerous. At the end of the day, a win is a win. And one without Clark? That's worth twice as much. The Indiana Fever just pulled off something most people didn't think they could. They beat the Seattle Storm without Caitlin Clark on the floor. No generational playmaker bailing them out. No logo threes to ignite the crowd. Just pure execution, grit, and a couple of players finally stepping into the spotlight. Normally, when Clark sits, the Fever offense looks like a car running on fumes. Kelsey Mitchell is forced to take contested jumpers. ALIYAH Boston drifts around the high post, and the ball movement dies. But this game was different. The Fever looked alive, and for once, the scoreboard matched the effort. Let's start with Boston, because this was her night. All season long, fans have been frustrated by her tendency to blend in rather than take over. She has every tool you'd want in a franchise center: strength, footwork, soft touch. But too often she plays politely, almost passively. Against Seattle, she finally flipped the switch. Boston went inside, absorbed contact, demanded the ball, and made the Storm regret leaving her single covered. It wasn't just the points, it was the way she played. When she's aggressive, everything changes. Defenses collapse to help. Shooters like Mitchell and Christy Wallace suddenly have space, and the whole offense flows. Boston reminded everyone she was the #1 pick for a reason. That version of Boston? That's the player who can change Indiana's ceiling. Then there's lexiehull. Look at the box score, and you might shrug. 5 points, 9 rebounds. But anyone who watched knows her fingerprints were all over this game. Hull fought through a nasty head-to-head collision with Gabby Williams, left the floor, got checked, and came back. That alone earns respect. Add in her hustle, the dives for loose balls, the box outs, the tipped passes, and you see why she matters. Those are the plays that swing possessions and frustrate opponents. It's not glamorous, it won't go viral on social media, but it wins games. And when your superstar is in street clothes, you need role players willing to do the dirty work. Hull embraced that role. Speaking of coaching, let's talk about Stephanie White. Her rotations still don't make sense. Rookie Michaela Timpson got buried on the bench until garbage time. Up by 20 points? That's the perfect situation to get a young player real reps, to build depth that can actually matter down the stretch. Instead, White leaned on her vets until the game was basically over. Fans have been scratching their heads about this all season, and nights like this don't help. But to White's credit, she did one thing right. She made Boston the focal point. Whether it was by design or simply letting her eat, the offense finally ran through the star big, and it worked. If White can keep Boston engaged at this level even when Clark returns, the Fever suddenly have a dangerous 1-2 punch. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the crowd. Indiana won in dominant fashion, and yet the arena felt quiet. Even with a 20-point lead, the energy was flat. That's the Clark effect. She's not just a basketball player, she's an experience. Every possession feels like theater when she's on the floor. Without her, it's still solid basketball, but the spark is missing. Fans showed up, they wore their Nike whiteout promo shirts, but the atmosphere wasn't electric. It felt routine, and that says everything about how much Clark drives the energy around this team and, honestly, the league. But here's the thing. This one matters precisely because she wasn't there. The Fever didn't just survive without Clark, they thrived. Boston dominated, Hull grinded, Mitchell scored efficiently, Sims brought energy. Everything clicked. That doesn't erase the inconsistency that's plagued Indiana all year. They've looked just as capable of dropping games to bottom teams. But it proves something important. They can win without leaning on Clark every second. The haters will downplay it. They'll say Seattle had an off night. They'll call it a fluke. But the scoreboard doesn't lie. And when you beat a playoff-caliber team without your best player, it says more about your growth than any routine win with Clark running the show. The Fever are far from perfect. Boston still missed a few easy layups she needed to clean up. White's rotations remain a mystery, and the bench looks shaky at best. But this game was a glimpse into what this roster can be. Boston as the anchor, Hull as the glue, Mitchell as the bucket getter, Sims as the spark, and then Clark back as the superstar. That's a team nobody wants to see in a playoff series. For now, this win wasn't just about a box score. It was about identity. Indiana showed they can punch back without their biggest star. And in a league where depth is rare and excuses come cheap, that kind of fight is priceless. Fans love ALIYAH Boston. They respect lexiehull. But let's be honest, Caitlin Clark is the magnet. She's the one who packs arenas, who creates an atmosphere that feels like a rock concert wrapped around a basketball game. Without her on the floor, the energy in the building flatlined. That doesn't mean the win over Seattle is meaningless. If anything, It proves what we already knew about the WNBA and about sports in general. Superstars put butts in seats and voices in the rafters. It also highlights something else: how spoiled Fever fans have gotten in such a short time. Think back just 1 year. Indiana fans would have done anything to see their team dominate a playoff-caliber opponent. A 30-point blowout. They would have celebrated like it was a finals win. Now, a big chunk of the fanbase shrugs because Clark wasn't on the floor. That says everything about how much expectations have climbed in just year 2 of Clark's pro career. People don't just want wins anymore. They want fireworks. They want logo threes, viral highlights, and the kind of moments that live forever on social media. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means the bar has been raised. Still, this win carries real weight for the Fever. They're in a tight playoff race where every win matters, especially against teams in the same tier. Beating Seattle wasn't just about pride or narrative. It was about tiebreakers, seeding, and momentum. If Clark returns soon, Indiana can ride this performance into a solid playoff position. If she's out longer, games like this prove they won't crumble without her. That's a massive psychological boost for the locker room. Players now know they can win ugly, win gritty, and even win big without leaning entirely on Clark's shoulders. Now let's zoom out. The WNBA is still a league hungry for rivalries and storylines. Indiana versus Seattle isn't Lakers versus Celtics, but nights like this build something bigger. Boston battling Seattle's bigs. Hull going head-to-head with Gabby Williams. Clark sits courtside in Nike's new CC gear, watching her team dismantle a playoff-level opponent. These are the kinds of little moments that shape larger narratives. Fans don't just need box scores, they need stories. And Indiana just gave them one. It's also ironic, isn't it? Indiana has been accused all season of being too dependent on Clark, of being a one-player show. Yet here they are, dismantling the Storm without her. The critics can't spin this one. They can say Clark carries the franchise, but this game proves the roster isn't empty. Boston reminded everyone she's a franchise center. Hull reminded everyone that toughness matters. Kelsey Mitchell played her role as a scorer. Christy Wallace and Temi Fagbennel chipped in. It wasn't just Clark's world for one night. The key now is consistency. Boston has to keep playing like the star she was drafted to be. Hull has to continue grinding on defense and winning those hustle plays that rarely show up in highlights, but always matter in wins. Mitchell has to keep scoring efficiently, and players like Sims have to stay engaged as spark plugs off the bench. If the Fever can bottle up this formula, they won't just survive Clark's absence. They'll thrive when she comes back, because she'll return to a team that's already confident in itself. So let's call it what it is, a statement win. Not a "we're title favorites" kind of statement, but a "we're deeper than you think" kind of statement. That matters. It's huge for morale, huge for playoff positioning, and huge for silencing critics. Boston played like the superstar she was meant to be. Hull brought toughness and resilience. And the Fever crushed Seattle without Caitlin Clark. That's a big deal. But what do you think? Was this proof Indiana's deeper than people say, or just a one-off? Drop your take in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.